DreamHack Open is brought to you by Chipotle, Corsair, Monster Energy, Nice Cactus, AT&T, and GGBet.
The doors to DreamHack are officially open. We are here in Atlanta, and I've been to some Atlanta DreamHacks before, but I have not seen anything like this. The halls are absolutely packed. Over 20,000 people going to be here, and that is to crown a champion of this stop of the DreamHack Open. My name's Rich. This is my first time hosting CSGO, so you might not have met me yet. I will do my best not to piss you off right when I start things off, but I wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for our sponsors, so a big shout out to them. Big thanks to Chipotle, Corsair, Monster Energy, Nice Cactus, and AT&T. We would not be able to have this show without them, but also we would not be able to have this show if we didn't have the people who are backing me up on the desk. We got some of the best minds here in CS. We got Potter and Pimp joining me on the desk. I'm excited to work with both of you guys. And Potter, let's just kick off by talking about Rotterdam. You were at the last stop. What happened for any of the folks who maybe didn't get to watch?
Rotterdam was a very exciting event. I think the most exciting part about it was all the fans that showed up. I mean, they didn't even have the casters in the arena, but they were loud, they were excited, and we've got both the grand finalists from that event here this weekend. So I'm excited to see a little bit of a redemption story, maybe for Heroic for missing out at that trophy.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear coming into this one from everyone that I talked to that we definitely have some favorites. Pimp, let's actually talk about those two squads.
Yeah, I mean, Heroic coming into this one after a good stint of online events. They qualified for Pro League. They've been playing, some of the best Counter-Strike the brand of Heroic have played in a long, long time. Whereas for Crazy, they lost the big two star players in Nexa and Hunter, and still they have managed to actually keep up the 11. They've been playing well. Winning Rotterdam is a great achievement for them. So two teams coming into this one with different approaches to the game, different ways of playing Counter-Strike, but definitely two teams that could end up winning the entire thing if they hit their game.
Yeah, we're going to talk about them a whole bunch throughout the day. Definitely two teams that already have the spotlight, but we want to take a look at all of our teams that are going to be competing. Let's take a peek at the groups and our 8 squads. Potter, let's kick it off with Group A.
Yeah, so in Group A, we're starting off with Heroic. As I mentioned, they were in the grand finals in Rotterdam, and they got to be feeling a little bit salty, I think. Those matches were very close. I think they're going to be coming in here swinging. They definitely want that trophy here in Atlanta. Then we got Sprout. Sprout is not a team, it's not a name that we've said very often coming into 2019, but they actually just a few weeks ago in EPL had a decent showing. I think they're going to come in here swinging as well this weekend and triumph. A North American Mountain Dew League team. They actually just qualified for those global finals in December, so they're certainly wanting to prove themselves, I think, this weekend. And Illuminar, I think this is a team from Poland that not a lot of us are familiar with, but they've got some players in Innocent and Reeds that I think have been around in the CSGO scene for quite some time.
I'm excited to really deep dive in Group A in just a little bit, but before we do that, let's take a look at Group B.
Yeah, we got Crazy being the top favorites coming out of Group B, but there's a lot of interesting names in this one as well. Virtus Pro, for once, also a team that has recently had some success. They did good in an event at Budapest where they finished second, I believe, coming to the final, so that was great play for them. Another team that we haven't seen much of as of lately is INTC. They made a roster change as of recently as well, brought in some old names we do know from the Brazilian CS scene. A lot of potential within this lineup. They just haven't managed to make it click. And then last but not least, Steel's team, Chaos, or whatever they were called before, something with Animi, yeah.
Animi?
Something along those lines.
We've been on the desk for 5 minutes, and already you've hurt my soul. Yeah, and I think with this team too, the discipline that they've learned from anime, one of the most important art forms, to say the least. I think that can be something that will allow them to potentially get an upset here, right? I mean, even with the way that they did enter this tournament, we know that it would be an upset if they're able to get anything going.
Yeah, and that group in general, Group B, is very open. I think they do stand a chance of actually making an upset in there. I think it's going to be tough for them in the best of 3 scenarios. You need a deep map pool. You need a lot of team play basically over the course of 3 maps if you want to beat some of those teams. But in a best of 1 scenario, and when you have Steel as an in-game leader, right? He's a very smart guy. He knows how to utilize a player, right? I wouldn't necessarily say that they're out of it, but it's definitely not the favorites, but it's the team that I would look towards if I was looking towards an upset.
For sure, and I think Group B has kind of been wide open now, especially with Crazy coming in with the ringer, Letney not showing up, and them coming in with Thomas. is going to be interesting, I think. I think all the rest of the teams in Group B are like, yes, this is a big opening.
I'm afraid it's going to make them better. But
I've heard that from so many people, but guys, we're going to get back to Group B in a little bit. Let's actually take our deep dive right now of what's going on in Group A and also see what is going to be up first. As you can see on your screen, Heroic and Triumph are going to be the first two teams that we are looking at. And I do want to talk about this because Heroic, this is the team that everybody's kind of saying clear favorite. Also, when you're going up against Crazy, as you guys just mentioned, having that stand-in, it is going to be a little bit of a wild card, how that is going to affect them. But Triumph, this is a team that has such a tall order to start off the day, Potter.
They certainly do, and as I mentioned, they're coming into this weekend to kind of prove themselves. I think the squad is back together. They kind of separated when they joined Dignitas after they qualified for EPL just a few months ago or last year. So they kind of separated, and now they're all back together, their original core, and they've been grinding through the qualifiers, grinding through MDL in North America, and they, as I mentioned, qualified for that global final. So they're on a high right now. They're coming into this weekend really hyped up and ready to prove themselves.
Yeah, it's really awesome when we do actually get a look at the entire field of play before we do actually jump into this matchup, and you kind of see the squads that have a whole bunch of momentum right now. They've been pulling down a bunch of wins, definitely more dominant teams in the scene. And then you also see these squads where a LAN like this is just going to mean so much to them, especially on the side of a team like Triumph.
Definitely, it's a great occasion, you know, in order to show some of the stuff they've been working online on. You know, it's a great platform basically for some of these teams to go out there and play the absolute best they can and see if they're good enough to beat a team like Heroic or at least make it competitive. I think it's very important for teams like those to manage the expectation, and I think they have done so as well. Coming into this tournament, it's not about them winning the entire thing. It's about them learning. It's about them getting a great experience and hopefully be able to make some of those games competitive against some of the, let's be honest, Heroic is a team right now that is trying to establish themselves as a top European team. We know how hard they can play, so if they can make this competitive, potentially even to the away best a win-win against Heroic, that's going to be all they're ever going to ask for.
I think that that's such an important way to actually look at it, right? You do need to come into this tournament, and you might have different goals than the other squad does. When you look at Heroic, yes, they are a team that is trying to prove that they can finally cut into that top caliber of teams. And with a squad like Triumph, is it just about going competitive? Do you think that that is what they're looking for here, Potter?
I think so. I think Jacob said it perfectly, is managing your expectations. A team like Triumph coming in, especially with how competitive Counter-Strike has been this year thus far, they're certainly going to be in the back of my mind, ooh, maybe we can actually win this whole thing. But really, it's about gaining that experience, gaining that exposure on that stage, and facing off versus opponents such as at the caliber of Heroic. It's not normal for these teams and players to play such competent teams. So coming into this tournament, I think if they do manage their expectations and try to steal a win in this BO1, they could turn some heads for sure.
I think that's such an important thing to actually think about, getting that LAN experience, but let's see what map it is actually going to be going down on as we have our vetoes coming in, as we start our best of ones today. And I do want to actually talk about how vital it can be to get the LAN experience here and now for these squads. As somebody who obviously knows what that environment's like, how important is it to actually get that rolling?
It's very important. It just, you know, with the vetoes as well, it's very important to get the feel for how you're like managing yourself, how you're conducting yourself in this environment. One thing is to play Counter-Strike at home, you know, when you're sitting in your basement or you're sitting in your room, you're just grinding it out and you're playing in comfortable setting. Here you have to go on a stage, there's going to be a crowd, there's going to be pressure, you can look towards your opponents, they're going to, you know, shake your hand before the game and do this whole mental game with the vetoes as well. So there's so many different let's say aspects you have to accommodate to as new guys who haven't really been on a stage before. So it can be quite it can be a wild experience sometimes. It can be sometimes where some people, they just crumble, they can't really handle the pressure, they can't really handle all the new aspects they're getting presented from. But sometimes it's also where some of those guys, you know, make a name for themselves. They show the world that yes, we're good online, yes, we're good when we're sitting at home, but we go to the stage and we don't care anyway, and we're going to play hearts out. So it is a great experience for some of these teams to just try it and see where it leads them.
Cool. Yeah, I think definitely you kind of have that added pressure too, and you got a bunch of nerds like us on the desk criticizing everything that you do. But we're definitely not going to be criticizing anything just yet, because we need to make some predictions about how this series is actually going to go. Now that we've also seen the map that's going to be played out on, how do you expect Heroic to get this started?
You know, I'm surprised it came down to Nuke, but I guess it makes sense that neither of these teams play Train. We saw that vetoed out really early on. I think this is going to be very challenging for Triumph. I think they're going to be starting off on that that T side first. Heroic is probably going to start off on that CT side, and as we know, Nuke is very heavily CT-sided base, and it requires a lot of cohesion on your team, and it's going to be very challenging for Triumph. I'm going to have to say Heroic.
Okay, well, let's actually start talking about Triumph just a little bit more. Obviously, this is going to be a squad that we don't know as much about, but we're going to get to look at their faces right now. I actually got to kind of bump into these guys before the event even got started. Yesterday, I bumped into them for the first time, got to talk to them at length, and I think the expectations, Pimp, that you were talking about is something that they have in their mind as well. Very, very quickly talking about the fact that they think they can make it competitive. They started to have practice against some of these top teams, and they're excited to be competing at LAN.
Well, that's a good thing, right? As long as they believe they can make it competitive, that means they have something, you know, that they believe in, you know, a concept of play that they hopefully can back up with some results here at this tournament. Looking at the players, it's not necessarily unknown players. Some of them is players you've seen before. Grim, when he was playing in Dignitas, he did a good job in the Pro League. I think that was Season 7 or Season 8. He made a name for himself online, you know, showing that he can play Counter-Strike at a high level. Voltage as well, being the highest rated player from this lineup, have been showing, you know, some decent Counter-Strike skills. So it's not necessarily them not having the talent. It's just a question whether they as a team can go up against a very, you know, very structured and very good founded Heroic team who have as of lately been playing some stellar Counter-Strike.
Absolutely. We have to remember also in Grim, Snakes, Voltage, and Exceed, these four have been together for a very long time, dating all the way back to like 2015. So they've been playing together for a long time. But as I said, they had a little bit of a split there just a year ago, and the band is back together. So they certainly are very used to playing with each other. They've got that structure on their side. It's just a matter of pound for pound. Are they going to be able to handle the stars in Stav and the star in Borup, and just the individuality if they're going to be able to come out on top?
It's crazy to think how long they've been together when you also think about how young they are too.
Right.
Like their average age is so young. When I was talking to Voltage as well, he was kind of the first guy that I bumped into, period, when I got off the plane in Atlanta. He was actually also talking about just qualifying for this event, and he was saying he wasn't even set up. He had to play at his brother's place, and he had like a wobbly desk, and every time he would move his mouse, like the entire desk would shake. And he was just talking about the fact that even in that situation, able to qualify, they're just so excited to be here and actually be at LAN. I'm excited to see what this team can do as we start to see all of their faces popping up on the screen. But being together for such a long time and being such a young team, what does that really mean for a squad like this? Like, they have so many good years left. I mean, I'm just a boomer over here. I'm jealous of their youth.
Sure, I mean, it's an interesting comparison, right? Because when you look towards Heroic, they have their facilities, they have their offices in Copenhagen where they play from pretty much every single day, right? So having a player who sits as a friend's house on a wobbly desk, having to play a qualifier, going up against a team that is full-time professionals, right? That get paid a lot of money to play this game and is trying to break into the very top. It's a fine contrast between the two teams, and that's also why it's very important for the people at home to manage your expectations. Don't expect Triumph to come out here and beat Heroic, but expect them to make it competitive. Expect them to give it a all, you know. And if again, you know, I'm trying to manage my own expectations as well, because I do believe that the lineup you have here on your screen, there's a lot of potential within it. If they can make this competitive, if they can get to double digits against a team like Heroic, that is not necessarily a win, of course, but that's a good sign for them moving on in the tournament when we get into the best of 3 games and when we get into the nitty-gritty.
I mean, that's such a beautiful way to start off this tournament, though, because it really does feel like that's such an important thing about the Opens. The idea that this team can rise up to all of a sudden be playing against one of the top dogs, as we see the faces of Heroic, one of the clear favorites of this tournament as a whole. And what superstars are really going to be the guys that we need to pay attention to here, Potter?
I think the young man on your screen right here, Stavin, he's certainly been a player that we've been talking about for so many months now, just leading up to the latter end of 2019. He's been a superstar on this Heroic lineup, and it's his edge that he has within that server. He's not afraid to take duels. He's not afraid to even pull out his knife and just prioritize spacing in those instances. So he's certainly out for blood here in this tournament.
Yeah, definitely. As you can see the team huddle going on there. And you get the nice view of that baseball cap, which I'm going to have to be wearing soon because I just found out that I'm balding. So I'm like kind of jealous.
Aren't we all
right
at some point, huh?
Yeah. Time is inevitable, and so too potentially a crushing defeat when going up against the tournament favorite in Heroic, as we do start to see a couple stats pop up on the screen for all of these players. This is such a favorite throughout the entirety of the day. We already talked about it a little bit, just based off of the field of play, potentially getting a rematch here in this tournament, and they're going up against Triumph first. Any other players you want to put the spotlight on here, Pim?
Yeah, I think Burrow is a guy to look out for as well, a guy they brought in recently together with Cadian. Those are the two newest additions to the squad. It's a squad that as of late, have had some roster changes. They haven't really found the footing ever since they brought these teams together. They've been playing well, they qualified for the Pro League finals. Burrow and Stown in particular have been showing some great individual brilliance, and then they have the core in the mentals, of the lineup, and Snappy being the in-game leader, Cadian being the AWP player who can also be sort of like a support role. So they have all the ingredients to have a good team. They're showing potential right now. So I think for Heroic coming into this one, it's also very important not to neglect the fact that they have a lot of pressure on their shoulders as well. This is a must-win tournament for them. If they end up losing another final, if they end up not even going to the final, well, they will fly home to Denmark and they'll be very disappointed. So it is a very, very interesting concept, this best-of-1 scenario in the first round here. They have a lot of pressure on themselves. If they got off to a bad start, well, you could maybe see them crumble already from the get-go.
I think that's a really important point. I just know in Rotterdam just a few weeks ago, Cadian in an interview was mentioning that he felt that his team was the underdog coming into that tournament. And as it should be, I mean, we had Avangard there. They were the major grand finalists. But coming into this tournament, as Jacob mentioned, their sights are set very high. They've got to be looking for that gold. They've got to be looking for that trophy. And they cannot underestimate this BO1 coming into this starting matchup, because in that finals in Rotterdam, they kind of fell flat towards the latter end of the half. So they've got to step up. They've got to take every round seriously and make sure that they go out today with a 2-0, so they start off this tournament on the right foot.
Yeah, I think that's so important to bring up, right? All the pressure is really going to be on the side of Heroic. I mean, Triumph gets to show up.
Nothing to lose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the best place to be when you're stepping up on the main stage. But when we actually do think about what you can get going when that pressure's on you, how important is this first matchup? Is this one of those matchups that you look at and you can actually, even when they're going up against the team that they are so expected to win against, can you start to see any signs for what may come later in the tournament?
Surely you can, and I think the map as well plays a factor here, right? It is Nuke, so let's say Heroic start from that T side, or let's say they start on the CT side for that matter, and get off to a bad start. Well, you could see some of that pressure start to mold in this team. Heroic is a team right now, as we've said plenty of times now, they're trying to, force their way into the top European scene, but they don't have that much experience dealing with being the big dog, right? You said it yourself, they went into Rotterdam feeling like the underdog. I would argue this is the first time they are the big dogs in a tournament, so let's see how they deal with that pressure, and let's see, even if they get off to a bad start, do they have the resilience, do they have the mental capacity in order to just, shovel that away and get back to winning ways? Because there's no doubt, if Heroic is playing just somewhat up to their normal level, they should be able to beat Triumph without a single doubt.
Now, Potter, I already kind of asked you this question, but we're going to go down the line right now. I think I know what both of you guys are going to say. It's time for predictions before we actually jump into our first matchup here. Who do you think is going to be able to take it?
I think it's pretty obvious right now that Heroic are the favorites coming into this tournament. So I got to say Heroic. I'm hopeful that Triumph are able to show their progress, show us something and make it competitive. But I got to say it's probably going to be Heroic.
I'm going to echo the same sentiment. I'm afraid this could be a blowout. I'm afraid Heroic could end up winning 16-4, 16-5, somewhat in that fashion. But I would love to see them make it competitive. I would love to see Heroic sweat a little bit. Could it get to double digits? That would be a win for them. But I expect Heroic to win clearly.
Do I make it fun, or do I listen to the big brain people on the desk right now?
Make it fun.
Should I make it fun? Triumph's going to be able to take it. I believe in the underdog. I believe in the power of anime, honestly, as we talked about a little bit earlier.
I don't know what it is, man.
To quote one of my role models here, believe it. That's from Naruto. I don't know if you know who. I'll show you in the green room.
Sure.
I'll teach you all about it.
Can't wait.
Yeah, I'm sure you can't wait. I can't wait to check in with our casters, the beautiful Jersey boys that we got to cast this one.
Yeah, I got to say, you say you're going bald like it's a bad thing.
I feel very comfortable in CS. Quite a lot of bald people.
If anything, that's it's like a trophy. Bald people get more gigs. That's just the way that it works.
Sign of respect.
Baldest people. And you know what? If you do go bald, as long as you keep peacocking with shirts like that, no one will even notice.
Oh, that's exactly what I'm doing. You know what? You take it away. It's time for you to peacock.
All right, I kind of want to see if Rich can bring that button down one more button, too. Really, get a gold chain in there.
Careful, I mean, we just got started. We got the whole weekend. Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the DreamHack Open. It is an absolute pleasure to be back for Counter-Strike once again after a bit of a long hiatus. And we're getting ready to jump into our first matchup here now, where it's going to be Triumph going up against Heroic. I think the desk laid this one out pretty well. I've got my thoughts on the matchup first. Let's hear what you have to think of this one, Bob.
I mean, obviously, you have to agree with them. Heroic has a bit of a more extreme pedigree coming into this. They've been playing at a higher level in general. Like, we just looked kind of at the Liquipedia pages. The overall total winnings for Heroic is $635,000. That's obviously since the org was started. And the quest is $525.
Yeah, so to be fair, there's like quite a few more players on
by comparison. No, I know, but and then we just look at individual players. Like, yes, you know, Triumph has at its core basically the old SOAR Dignitas roster. The main change is that MCE is behind the team instead of playing on the active roster. Spongy taking up that 5th spot, but the rest of these guys were part of that team that surprised everyone, I think almost 2 years ago now, making it into the Pro League in the first place. Whereas on the opposite end, you just have so much experience. But it is time to jump into Nuke, and I'm excited to see what they're going to bring to the table.
Let's get into it, ladies and gentlemen. Heroic going up against Triumph. The pistol round begins now. Heroic will be starting on the CT side, Triumph on the offense here. This is yet another problem for Triumph, though, is having to start on T side here going up against Heroic, which is a Danish team on Nuke. We all know how well that usually goes. Snappy is going to take first contact at ramp, but he'll end up falling back, and oh, never mind. He actually takes the duel at the ramp. He gets a 1-for-1 exchange, ultimately going down to Exceed.
That's the tag with the USP over towards the doors, trying to spot players, having a hard time making the USP connect, as is Cadian. So site control, not exactly gained by Triumph, but not exactly lost either. A strange position to find themselves, but it does come down to one. It's going to be Stown, the all-star, the young player coming in from that old Fragsters roster. What has he got for us? He'll spot the first target. It'll be Spongy, and it's an easy kill and execution with the USP. 3 still remain.
A good start, but a long way to go. And unfortunately, doesn't have the greatest amount of utility to accomplish this. No nades, yes, he has armor, but also no kit either, meaning the time, if not gone already, is soon going to be a thing of the past for him here. Ston trying his best to fish out at least one of these kills. Spots the player on Catwalk, will make a change-up over towards Control to try and knock him out, but cannot line up the shot. He'll go down to Snakes, and Triumph take the first blow.
I believe that is basically the key right now for Triumph, is getting off to a great start. That's going to be necessary because I have a hard time imagining that Heroic is going to give them much. So they got to take every inch possible away from them, and they do pick up the pistol early on. That is going to put the CT side in this weird state of a bye. They come in with a Mag 7, an UMP, and a Scout. A gun we don't actually see all that often. The SG meta has kind of shaped that CT side away from buying Scouts in the second round.
And we are going to see, besides this, though, good amount of utility coming out for the T side, and they're going to make a bit of a run over here towards Secret. Not necessarily going for the actual Secret control just yet, but taking at least a good amount of outside control. Spongy is also investigating some options over here towards the ramp currently. But for the most part, Heroic taking a pretty passive note on this round, as well as you might expect, considering the buy that they have here. Just trying to sit back, wait for contact to come their way from Triumph, and it's looking like they may get that at ramp here in just a moment, as Snappy is going to have to take on the duel again. Hides in plain sight. It works out at least for 1 kill. Can he survive, though? It looks like yes. He'll make it back into the site, so that kill goes untraded for now.
Triumph come into this with the SMGs, trying to get some extra money, trying to net that extra cash. On the CT side, strikes first. Snappy finding that kill. It's a slow round at this point, really not much else happening. Grim feeling his way towards that lower bomb site. There's one still hiding. It's Snappy. He's looking for a second kill on the round. Not going to get it. Gets dinked almost immediately by Grim. As the tag is on the rotate, but he's only got a Mag 7, but at that range, it's perfect. There's one more target in front. Can't quite connect. And now he's in an awkward position. The door right behind him. He's got some support from the Deagle. They double peek and it works out. The door is popped open. It's a 2-on-4 though, favoring the CT side, but time is against them.
Ollie is going to bank out a little bit more. Does still give the CTs access to try and make a push if they want to, and it will work out to pick up the trades and pull off the retake. Heroic are coming back into this. Plenty of time, of course, for the defuse, and they will now tie it up at 1-1.
Triumph now have an interesting decision to make because there's going to be a little bit of money, but if they pump the brakes and just full save here, they'll have a full buy following. That is a round you really just cannot lose if you're Triumph. I think they came into it just a little too light. I would have loved to see them maybe invest a little bit more. Just the SMGs clearly wasn't enough. So here we come in. They've got a single Deagle, some nades, a couple of P250s, no armor purchased. Looking to just grab that bomb plant if they can. And this could be a round really where Heroic starts to build up that cash flow big time. Lots of nades being thrown out early on. And the smoke's going to go down in the hut. Here comes the pop out the smoke. It'll be Voltage to go first, and somehow he comes out on top of that duel. Stown able to only get 1 kill. What a bizarre turn of events as we've seen Triumph gain access into this A site. And leg shot as well.
In fact, Snake's going to end up killing Spongy in the process of that one. Cadian takes him out because of the damage that had been done, and Snappy finishes off Exceed. So Heroic will shut it down and take the lead at 2-1. Seemed like they had a good chance to actually make it in there with the opening kill, but unfortunately didn't have anyone covering the push from Mini. I think a few other angles were left unchecked as well. They just ultimately didn't have the gun power to hold some of those angles, and as such, they're going to get wiped on the retake there by Heroic.
Yeah, they had no smoke or anything for Mini, so obviously the threat was there. They hear the op coming through. They can't really take that, but there's also a player up potentially in heaven because they can't clear that either. So even though they had site control, they couldn't do anything with it because they just, like you said, didn't have the firepower. Here's the buy we wanted to see, though. The SG comes down, but one player's already taken out. It's going to be Snakes, who's now watching from the sidelines. An early advantage for Heroic.
He's going to take a massive amount of damage, I believe, from Cadian over here inside of the warehouse. Going to try to chuck a nade over to finish things off, and it was indeed Cadian that did the damage. Exceed still sits alive, though. He'll dodge that nade, and we'll be able to fall back a little bit further into safer territory here. Rest of the team still looking like they're going to try and go for some outside control, though, with the smoke lineup coming in now from Voltage. I believe maybe one or two other players here. Here we go with the lineup for them, and they are going to have the full four-man train make their way out. The good news here for Triumph is, look, there's no one here from Heroic. You've got one player peeking outside of Mini and S-Tag, and Ston as well, though. Missed him, sitting way up in heaven, is going to be able to finish off Exceed, picking him off. The other three make it through without a single point of damage being done to them, however.
Yeah, no mollies from the CT side to slow this push down, but they do have players set up in position on both stairs. They try to trade peek, and they do end up with one kill. There's the flashbang out, beautifully thrown, and it brings things down to Voltage. He'll have to be electrifying to try to win the round. It's a 1-on-5, and the bomb is in possession of this CT side of Heroic, and he actually turns away at the worst possible time. I believe they're actually both in the vent. Yeah, there you go.
Interesting standoff there for a second, but Voltage is going to be able to find that kill. Borp, oh, he goes back into the vents to find the second onto Stown as well. He's even predicted this third one to come from up on top of the ladder as well, just a little bit too early on the peak there to try and find it. He'll go back into the main hall again. Mind you, he's only got 20 seconds left here as well to get that bomb onto the ground. And unfortunately, he does not have any cruise control right now. Cadian will finally finish him off here on the corner, and that'll be another round going into the pocket of Heroic.
Currently echoing the sentiments stated on the desk, Heroic looking really strong, and it does seem like Triumph has found a little bit of wiggle room at times, but they haven't been able to do much with that. They'll be coming into this one with probably not enough money. It's going to be another save coming in, so the CT side going to continue to spread that gap even further, and they've picked up the SGs, which is going to make things so much harder for them on that T side.
And ultimately, this is also lining up with the analysis the desk was giving here, too, where it seems like Heroic just kind of has like a better game plan for the entire round at this point. Triumph is getting away with a couple individual moments. We haven't seen too much for the actual team come together to check. Mind you, it's very early days in this game, so it's early days on the T side as well here for Triumph. So there's still quite a bit more we can see come out of them later on. But right now, it's looking like Heroic has the read to shut down Triumph in most situations, even into the future.
I mean, their nuke play right now is very basic and vanilla from what we've seen. You know, they go for that smoke take outside. They try to go for the hut pop through the smoke on the eco round. It really hasn't seen much from them, so to be fair, there might be more in the playbook. But again, they lose a player early on at Spongy, dying to Snappy. Meanwhile, Stown across the map taking down Exceed. And Snappy's going to find a few more coming his way. It's down to just Voltage yet again. Another 1-on-5, similar position as the time before.
Just another anti-eco there that goes relatively quickly into Heroic's favor. And with that, their lead grows ever more. Things still looking great for them. However, that, again, was an eco round for our T side. So in just a moment, Triumph hopefully going to be coming back into this one with a bigger and a better buy to make yet another strat attempt here.
Here's the thing that we were talking about coming into this. Heroic has everything to lose if they don't take this. Triumph has everything to gain. There's no pressure on them because it's like, hey, if we are actually able to pick up a win here, that's huge. If we don't, okay, that's what people expected of us. We're playing against a really strong opponent in Heroic. Second place at, DreamHack Open Rotterdam. It's understandable if you're Triumph and you lose this game. It's not understandable if you're Heroic and you lose it.
So Heroic are looking to keep things consistent here as we enter the heat of yet another gun round. Cadian just seconds away from finding this confirm onto Exceed, and he will indeed get it. Knocks him out after S-Tag takes the bait earlier on. Snappy will take some damage away from Spongy as well. There's a good amount of damage to him. He's trying to decide now if it's worth it to stick around here and allow the support from Cadian, which it was. He's going to be able to find that. Snappy goes in for a quick double onto both Grim and Snakes, and now Voltage sits alone in a 1v5.
Those early advantages that they were able to find in those first few rounds, they're gone. All of these rounds are heavily in Heroic's favor, constantly picking up that opening kill and a second and a third. There's no trades whatsoever coming in from Triumph. Again, Voltage is the last man standing. How many times have we said that already? And we're only 5 rounds into the game, in the 6th. He's got himself an op. He's going to try to make some room, but there is nowhere to go. Heroic take another round.
All right, so in my opinion, time for Triumph to bring out the heavy hitters now here. These basic strats are not working out. They've already tried to push ramp in a direct way, as you just saw there multiple times. It worked in the beginning, yeah, but that was a pistol round. Fortunately, it hasn't really worked since then. We've also seen them try to go for outside play and lose multiple players and eventually fail in the execute there, and they've even tried to go for the inside ones as well. So we need to start seeing a little bit more variance here for Triumph, as the odds go ever against Triumph's favor, unfortunately.
Yikes. Esatag positioned outside. There's the second smoke. If he just spams it, he'll do a little damage. He did catch one crossing.
Missed the push.
Yeah, there you go. Voltage is going to die, and that's tough. That's actually the bomb, so it slows down the take and gives the CTs time to rotate into position. Borup on the stairs. That's a 1-2 punch from him with the M4, and again, reduced numbers for Triumph. Barely any damage dealt by them.
Going to grow very quiet here for the next few seconds. The last two players from Triumph trying to think of how they want to play this. Spongy swings out without his teammate, gets the first kill and a second against Borup as well, though Borup will trade out Snakes. Now left alone here, Spongy. He's been upgraded to a Krieg at least, so he's got that to play off of, but doesn't really have any intel whatsoever about how this 1v3 is going to play out. He's relying just on game sense alone, which so far, that's working out pretty well here for Spongy. Moves in, knocks out the upper, and now he's going to make a mad dash up ramp. He does have control over the bomb, so he can make this rotate, but the problem is, he may be expected by his opponents. You've got at least one player working his way up. That's Esatag, who's going to be waiting for him on the heaven rotate.
Well, this is going to be a difficult position for him to kind of suss out, but it looks like he actually might be repositioning. We'll see what Spongy has in mind. He's got 20 HP, and he does have a little bit of time to work with. It's ticked down to about 30 seconds. Esatag, though, moving his way into the lobby. There's still one on the lower side. That's down, and he's just holding that door, watching for the peek to come through from Spongy. He has no idea this is coming. This is actually masterfully played by Spongy, but time is of the essence. He has to get this kill quick and move into the site. So there it is. Now he's got to get that bomb down.
He's got the first, remember, he's had control of it this entire time, so he does not have to waste any time getting it on the ground. The problem is, here comes the rotate. Thankfully, that tunnel no longer leads out onto the site, so they got to wrap all the way to the backside. Spongy as well, looking for the lineup and so close to closing out. But no, Esatag gets the headshot at the final moment of the round and saves it for Heroic.
Tough play there for Spongy. He heard that door open. He wanted to go up on the upper deck. Not going to happen. He did, I believe, have a molly, so he had a chance to use utility, but he just goes for that dry peek. Not really sure what's coming, doesn't want to pull out a nade in a 1v1. Very understandable situation to find yourself in. But they only got there because of what he had already done in the round. That was almost an ace clutch. It was, at one point, a 1v3. Spongy, I mean, so close, but so far.
Admirable attempt.
Yeah, absolutely.
And very smart in the way that he approaches it, too. Lines it up and brings it down to the 1v1, mainly because of the smart ways that he approaches that situation, but he ultimately just can't close out the final 1v1, which is always a little bit unfortunate at the end of the day.
I was eating breakfast this morning with Triumph and I was talking to them, and we were talking about how, you know, Counter-Strike plays out. It's like 60% aim and then 40% mental, and they joked and said, so you're saying we have a 60% chance to win? But that clearly was a good example of a strong mental play from Spongy, and they also have a great tactical mind in their leadership with MCE behind them. I just don't know if Nuke was the right call.
Yeah, especially as well when you look at their history on it here. Cadian take yet another point of contact here, and they've actually changed this up a little bit, as it was not Cadian holding the direct ramp play in previous rounds. However, they've seen how heavily it's been committed to, so I think they're going to try to put him on it just to try and use that extra pressure to force Triumph back a little bit. It was previously Snappy, if memory serves me correctly, at least from the previous round. Snakes is going to toss the flash and let up in the open a little bit here, and that means that Exceed is going to be able to find the opener on Snappy, but Esatag is there to trade it back just a second later. You can see the rest of Triumph is having some serious issues making it into the site here, as well as every attempt they've made to push so far has failed for the most part, with the exception being the trade onto Snappy.
I think that's the first round in a while that Triumph has actually found an opening kill. You know, obviously he gets traded out almost immediately. Down, having a hard time, uncharacteristic of him with the M4, can't get the spray under control. They still have players surrounding, choking out that site. Cadian's going to move in, doesn't even realize it's one, but it doesn't matter. P250 flicks dead on. It's down nearly, or Cadian nearly craters on his way down. Voltage with the AWP, can't get much done.
Cadian really trying hard not to lose the the economy bonus he's got going there for himself with the Krieg that he carries over, but actually had an op and ended up dropping that just to give a teammate a Krieg, so he's going to end up having to rebuy anyway there. But either way, good stuff from him playing on the upper platform, and continued good performance here to come in from Heroic, as they seem to be dominating this matchup right now, much like I think a lot of the devs expected. Triumph, again, coming very close in a couple of situations, especially the 1vx we had from Spongy a few rounds ago. But from a team perspective, nothing's really working out right now for Triumph. Executes are never really finding their connections. They're always ending up on the losing end of trades for those, and when that's happening, they're just never really going to give themselves much of a chance to pick up a round here on this T side.
When you look at the history for Triumph on this map as well, it's not necessarily a map they're bad at, but it's not a map they're necessarily good at either. It kind of rides the line. Their wins, not really over big teams, and their losses, not really the big teams either. It's kind of like a back and forth battle, 16-14 losses and victories to Ben's anime team, who is actually at this event playing under their new org in Chaos. So again, if you kind of wonder what would this look like if we found ourselves on a different map. I think the final two maps, it was between this and Vertigo. So it's an understandable position to find yourself.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Vertigo wouldn't have been much of a better choice going up against Heroic, considering the way that I've seen them play this recently as well.
Exactly.
So it's basically pick your poison at that point, and assumably Triumph was a better map for them. Either way, in the midst of another gun round, as you might expect at this point, Heroic do have the man advantage on it, but it's a bit of a bait as we've got Triumph coming out through Squeaky and Stalin. I think he's going to run out of ammo there. Grim will take him down. Borup now trying to hold in the back lanes behind the nuclear tankers. Going to be able to find one. Nearly gets the second, but Cadian does come in to confirm the trade. Now Snakes is left in a 1v1 here after he finds the first confirmation on this battery. Quickly flicks to find Cadian as well. And there you go. Snakes, the 1v2 clutch, puts Triumph back on the board with the second round.
That's the player they missed the most when they made Pro League under their old Sword Dignitas roster. They missed him because he wasn't able to play because he was not actually old enough. That was one of the things that really led to the detonation of that roster, was not bringing in their starting five and having to kind of juggle players in and out into that role. Makes a big play there and illustrates his value, but he's had a rough start. That's actually the first 2 kills he's gotten in this game, but they're 2 important kills. It's all about impact. Here comes the push outside yet again. This time they throw things for a switch and they put S-Tag inside the stairs. Does a little bit of damage, drops down. He's got support coming in, and this is going to be oh so difficult. It always feels like the inch that Triumph gets is met with a foot from Heroic. They get 1 kill and instantly 2 get traded out in the other team's favor.
Massive pinch right there, especially with S-Tag making the quick lateral to go in front of the stairs instead of dodging it from the side. This does mean that Borup is going to get flashed out now, though, and Spongy and Voltage will work together to take him down. Stalin with the quick rotate working his way in from T-Lobby. He's now going to take a position that, to be honest, I don't think Triumph will necessarily expect. But Triumph, as you can see there on the left side, also working to get some heaven control going. Oh, S-Tag with a good spot right there. Some good intel to give over to teammates that are still sitting on the inside of the site. They'll molly it off. That just unfortunately means that S-Tag gets mollied as well, but hey, they got the kill on Voltage, so they'll take it.
Down clearly thinks there's someone coming up from behind, and in fact there is. Spongy gets a kill, but it puts things onto Snakes yet again with that SG. It's clutch time for him. 1 quick kill, but traded out immediately by Cadian. It just kind of illustrates what's been happening round after round.
A little bit too bold there from Snakes at the end with the run out. Was trying to do it behind the nade, but I don't think he expected both players to be out in the open, pretty much ready to PK. It was this pinch, though, that really defined the round and once again shut it down for Heroic, though. The play between S-Tag and I believe Borup on the inside of Mini that pinches out that push over towards Secret.
Yeah, I assumed this was a timeout coming in here from Triumph. At this point, it's long overdue, and actually surprised that we didn't see it sooner. Again, one of the things I highlight about this team is MCE's leadership as a coach. He spends so much time researching nades and all this nade knowledge and lining up creative ways to take sites. This is probably one of the worst maps for you to find yourself on if that's the way you like to play. I would have loved to see them get onto a blank canvas map like Overpass or Mirage, where they can really flex that kind of creativity. We've even mentioned it, their nuke takes on this map do feel somewhat vanilla. It's very generic outside takes, and those aren't even going well. That round before, the reason it kind of came to that point was because of the fact that there was a gap in one of their smokes. Actually, it wasn't even their smoke. It was a smoke thrown, I think, from the CT side at the top of stairs, but regardless, there was a smoke that was misthrown, and that opened up the opportunity for Heroic, and they're going to take every one of those opportunities and punish you with them.
Snappy is back on position over here towards ramp, more than likely just because we're dealing with an anti-eco here. Triumph working at best with a Deagle, and at worst, unfortunately, with a bunch of P250s. They do have a respectable amount of utility to try and use here. The question is whether they're actually going to be able to get it onto the ground, as once again, they're quickly being put into it. It's Snakes that goes down first. Grim also going to be finished off by Cadian after he took earlier damage from Snappy. And now Cadian will continue to fall back. He's going to try to take contact at the window. We'll throw it on the molly, though. This is a smart play so far. However, they still get the better of him. A good job, though, from Cadian. He wastes a good few seconds here. It buys time for players like Ston to get in better position to stop the rest of this push.
T-side, though, has to make up their mind about what they want to do now. They've gotten themselves a gun and a little bit of map position. They can try to come up on the backside of Heaven, but Only one player is rocking armor, that's Spongy. And he's not the one carrying the AWP. The AWP in Voltage's hands. Spongy wants to go up the ladder. The CT side has fallen off, so they've given them that control, that level of access. Borup watching for the push out, and he'll catch the first one, almost gets the second to Crater, he'll finish him off. It's all up to Voltage yet again. Voltage, though, hits both shots with the AWP, saw the third come up, so he knows where this last player is, takes the damage, doesn't actually hit that slope the way he needs to. It's a 1-on-2, and the bomb has been planted. One already out on the site, and they're moving in quick, trying to get this pinch in fast. He has to react. First shot off the mark, and that's pretty much his opportunity gone, but playing ring around the rose, he gets a second shot that he shouldn't have been able to find. Can't make that one work either, and Heroic win yet another round.
Very surprised he was able to keep that going for as long as he did.
Yeah, right, like after he missed that first shot, I'm like, okay, we'll round over.
I was like, okay, just split now, boys. They kept it going for at least a few seconds, but either way, Heroic are going to be able to continue to clean things up. To be fair, the rounds aren't being won in such a clean fashion as they were previously. We're seeing the rounds being won with maybe like 2 to 3 players alive at most, I think, a lot of the time now, with the exception mainly being anti-ecos, but it's not mattering just because the consistency is there across the board. I mean, yeah, look at the scoreboard. We're looking at a 9-2 game right now, so.
Look at the kill spread, though, from Heroic. 11 for your top frag, 9 for your bottom. Like, the plus-minus differential on the team is actually insane. Everyone is carrying their own weight. Here comes that outer take, or so we think. Nade's thrown outside, but they're actually pressuring towards lobby, and Cadian, he just peeks through, gets dinked, but hits a shot. Now it's up to Snappy to slow this push down. Uses the smoke to give him some time, but doesn't actually get the rifle back out. So that's a advantage for Triumph in that they've gained control of the ramp room, and now they got to get into this lower site.
The push into lower is happening at a pretty slow pace, though, and that's going to become problematic, as you can see, it's allowed for plenty of time for Heroic's players, mainly Borup here inside control to rotate down. He was able to drop the bomb, but I believe they're going to be able to pick that up with the trade now, and even better, Cadian has been pushed back away from Decon. He can no longer actively hold, so they should be looking at a plant soon. Maybe not. We've got Spongy falling back with the bomb in hand. And Exceed is actually going to be holding on the inside while Snakes has snuck his way all the way upstairs. And I think is making the call to Spongy that this is actually going to be a safer bet instead. It's not a bad play. The question is it going to happen without being noticed? And I don't think that that's going to happen. Stalin already working his way back up. Spongy still very disconnected from all this. I think he's over towards Hell right now.
Just that contact, though, could slow things down here on the rotate. Exceed doing some damage to the CTs on the B site. Now the bomb will be planted upper, and the only player that was in position is down. Now he hears the bomb, so he can make the call to his teammate. He's already coming in through heaven. They're not going to expect a player to be in this position so quick. Catches Spongy off guard. Almost fumbled it away. Spongy had an opportunity to do some damage, but not enough. It is a 2-on-3. The numbers favoring the CT side, but the health certainly not there for S-Tag, and he's taken out quickly. Snakes finds himself a second. There's only one more remaining. It's Cadian, and Snakes finds the 3K. That's 2 rounds now that Snakes has really single-handedly won. It was his position in that upper site that made that bomb plant possible, and the 3K to cap things off as well.
Yeah, so great rotate from Snakes, once again there, and being able to actually catch out the fact that this site was left open and undefended, and more importantly, give Spongy the opportunity, because they still had full control working all the way from ramp to heaven, being able to transfer that bomb over. So, good mid-round adjustment. We've seen a couple of those now, because that happened the last time Spongy was ending up in a clutch situation, too, where he tried to wrap back around and nearly won the round there. So, we're seeing hints of very smart play come out from the folks here on Triumph. Unfortunately, it's just not sticking enough here, and we're not seeing it lead to consistent round wins, which is really what they need right now.
I mean, that round right there is really the way that Triumph should be playing this. Much more scrappy, much more individualistic, stop being predictable, and start being chaotic. You know, a team like Heroic, they're going to understand what you're doing when they see the nades come out. They're going to catch on to that really quick. Their communication, their rotation, their team play in general is going to be very strong. So what you have to do is you have to kind of isolate them. Play it super puggy almost. Like, I hate to encourage that, but I feel like that's actually what's going to work. It might only find you around here, around there on your T side, but that's what they're getting anyway. In the rounds that they tried to execute or do something that is a little bit more predictable, it fell flat on its face.
Another problem, too, is soon they're going to be on CT side as well, which means their options for trying to get aggressive are going to be a little bit more limited unless they want to take some pretty serious risks to their players at the early of rounds, which, considering the way that general gun duels have gone, probably not something they want to do. Snapping with another early pick here. As actually a trade from an earlier kill. Down, though, going off with the deagle. Finds 2 from up on top of the box in the back corner before being traded out by Spongy, and he will also find the finisher onto Snappy. That's full ramp control going over to Triumph, but not man advantage, as we were only locked into a 2v2.
do have the AWP and the SG against a FAMAS and an MP9. Not exactly all-star equipment coming in from Heroic, but Stown only had a deagle and he made it work, found 2 kills on the round. Voltage now trying to move his way back to the back end. He's going to get caught by the AWP and the SG. Does damage, but not enough. So now it's up to Cadian. A 1v2 with the FAMAS, no kit, light armor, a smoke and a flash, and he's going all around the world to try to get this retake. He's going to go all the way back through the lobby, and oh, he might actually catch them off guard.
Work his way back in. The plant will go down. Where is Katie in position at? Still outside for the looks of things. He's going to slowly work his way back in a moment. Might actually end up with Voltage peeking, as you were mentioning before. They may not actually catch Katie in here since it's just an unexpected maneuver from him, but no, it looks like no one's going to end up pushing up toward the squeaky doorway. He's going to have to peek into at least one of these 2 players' visions if he wants to try and take the fight. About half the time gone for the bomb timer now, so he needs to move quickly. There you go. That was the hard one. That was the op going down. Able to eliminate that just as to find Spongy. As you can hear, time is getting very low and hiding in the smoke. Spongy is going to be right on the other side of that Cadian right now. No idea that he's sitting in. Taps the bomb to get him out, but ultimately Cadian wins the 1v1. The problem is, though, he does not have anywhere near the amount of time he needs to defuse that, so Triumph will still pick up a number 4 here on the timer. Cadian just gets it off for his troubles.
Yeah, just watching Spongy play that one, super patient, hiding behind that smoke. The second that Cadian even taps the bomb, the round's already lost. He can't win it. There's not enough time. Even if he sticks it from that point, I don't think he had it. I mean, these rounds that they're winning, they are very scrappy. As long as they can get 1 or 2 more, they're not in the worst position to find themselves in. Now, we do have a pause coming in, and maybe it's another tactical pause.
The question is who's it from at this point, because it realistically could be from either team.
I would expect this to be from Heroic if it is tactical in nature, simply because of the fact that, you know, they were looking a lot prettier just a few rounds ago. Now they're like letting things slip away a little bit. The money's getting out of control, so now they're broke. And this is the opportunity for Triumph to kind of wedge themselves into this game. They looked awful early on. Triumph was getting decimated round after round. I'm talking 5v1s, multiple rounds in a row. That's not sustainable, clearly. From the T side, you got to win. You got to do something. You got to get some kills, take some money off the table. And eventually they started to do that. Halfway through this first half, they started finding more kills, putting themselves in 2-on-2s, 3-on-3s. And now the CT side money is bizarre. They have this AWP and they're trying to figure out what they want to do around it. Do they want to buy and surround the AWP with some firepower, or is he by himself?
So once again, Heroic with a solid start here, but some cracks are starting to show. Relatively small ones, mind you, in the grand scheme of this game so far, but it could turn larger as the side switch is bound to happen in just about 2 to 3 rounds from now. That is going to give the folks on Triumph hopefully a little bit of an easier time putting things together, especially if they're able to go 2 for 2 on pistols after winning the first. It should be noted that they lost the conversion on the first pistol, so that is not by any means a guarantee of the 3 rounds and the good economical start for the CT side. We have to make sure that things go well for them, especially if they can't rally back on these next few rounds to make the T side scoreline slightly more competitive here.
The strangest thing right now for Triumph is that some of their players just are not showing up when they needed them to. If you listen to the desk, they were talking about Grim and how Grim really surprised people in his run with the previous team in Pro League. And I'm looking at Exceed as well. Exceed, at one point, you know, I looked at Exceed as potentially a big future player in NA. He actually still does it. If you go to his social media, he'll post what he calls like aimer scraps. His aim and mechanics are insane. But right now, it's not translating. He was 5-11, and I believe Grim had like 4 kills and 9 deaths. These players are usually, for lack of a better term and no pun, exceeding expectations. Obviously not happening here.
Not at this point. So we have to wonder why exactly that is. Is it the map choice? Is it the fact that they're a little bit more unfamiliar with the situation being put in front of them here? They don't have the longest history on this map specifically, and like I think you had mentioned this earlier too, they aren't really against any upper echelon teams or anything like that. The only really notable match, at least from recent history, has to be when they played Ben's anime team, which of course is now Chaos, who's here at this event.
And they lost.
And they lost it. It was 14-16. So that doesn't give you the best of prospects going up against Heroic, which is a Danish team on Nuke.
Now, to be fair, they also beat Ben's anime team on that map, but it was 16-14 win, 16-14 loss, 16-12 loss to Team 1. You look at the teams they're beating as like Big Frames, Bushido Boys. These are not like high-profile upper echelon teams. So in those instances, they just outclass their opponent, which is kind of what's happening here to a certain degree with Heroic. But they've managed to scrape together a few rounds, and they've really pinned Heroic against the wall. So Heroic does go for the force buy. They've got the AWP and the shotgun and the SMGs. Strangely, you don't see the buy. I think this is going to be a restart.
Yeah,
I was going to say, why did they not buy? Because they have more than enough money. So we'll get a restart going, and they'll match Medic, and things will be pretty again.
So just working on that, folks. We appreciate your patience while you stick with us for this one. VR just joining us. It is Heroic going up against Triumph. And we are reaching the end of the first half. Originally, this was a very one-sided map going completely into the favor of Heroic, it seemed, but now it's started to change a little bit as the scoreline currently sits at 9-4, with the potential for Triumph to run it up to 9-6 coming off their T side.
The classic waiting game. I'm not sure what the technical issue was that caused it, but hopefully we will be jumping back into things momentarily. If anything, this might give a Heroic a chance to just sort of mentally reset, because the last few rounds kind of not really going the way they would have liked based on the way this started. Yeah, sure, you know, they didn't win that last round. Cadian walks away with a gun, and they can build off that. But I imagine, like we said before, Heroic had everything to lose coming into this series, whereas Triumph didn't. So Triumph getting a few rounds really rattles the cage of Heroic, a team that is potentially a favorite to win this event.
At the same time, the lengthy pause does give Triumph a bit of a cooldown period, which is not necessarily a good thing for them. As, you know, you've seen teams snowball, get a little bit, especially NA teams for some reason, get like, you know,
confidence.
Get a lot more confidence going behind them, and that in turn leads to round wins. It's a weird like mental game, but it does have, as far as I can tell, quite a bit of legitimacy to it, especially for teams that are earlier on in their days. But we are back into it. We've got Triumph trying to make a push. More likely coming out squeaky in just a second. Stown is here waiting on the inside. The Hut to try and pick up a few players. The XM. Ooh, he's not even going to get one, unfortunately. Voltage shuts him out. The second he tries to push. Esatag is going to end up in a very awkward spot after running out of ammo there. Borup will end up taking one of Stawn's kills as he also claims the second against Exceed, and now is looking to shut this down. We're down to only Spongy. Ooh. However, Spongy's making a run at this in the 1v3. He's already picked up 2. Now just has to look for Cadian. Once again, it's the up against the world here again on the T side.
Oh, and the play by Spongy to go all the way around might actually benefit Cadian big time. He's got this AWP, and he's looking around. He sees the bomb, so he understands, like, this guy's got to be somewhere close. There's no way he's going too far away. Spongy decides to go heaven with that SG. He's got himself a molly. Cadian has the smoke and a kit.
I was curious to see, is this the third time now that Spongy's tried to make a crazy lateral like this. Oh, it works as well. Spongy shuts down the 1v3, pulls out yet another round here for the folks on Triumph, bringing it to 5-9 as we enter the final round of the half. But yeah, I was starting to wonder, because that's like the third time we've seen Spongy pull a crazy move like that, just trying to wrap around and go to the other side of the site by going completely around the map, essentially. And Heroic are not catching it. I thought at this point they would have realized the fact that it was Spongy and that maybe he would try something like that again, but did not register that quickly for Heroic, I suppose.
Unfortunate that that trade peak didn't work out for Heroic, too. The ump swings wide after his teammate Borup died with the SG, and he wasn't able to capitalize. Final round of the first half sees the CT side scraping together a buy yet again. SMGs and a singular FAMAS. No kits. Extra armor on a few. Borup does a lot of damage, and Spongy says, don't worry, guys, I can kill my own team, too. He takes down Grim, so a little bit of help being provided. It's Voltage and Snakes now in a 2-on-4. Make it a 2-on-3 as Voltage takes down Cadian with the SG.
Much faster openers here from Triumph, and once again we are brought down into another now 2v2 with Snakes finding a kill onto Esatag. This is looking like Triumph have another great opportunity to set it up indeed for that 6-9 halftime that seemed relatively impossible until a few rounds ago. Voltage going to work in. They'll have site control upstairs. Both Snappy and Stawn are coming up through Secret right now to work their way back in from outside. We'll just have to see if they can get any kind of positioning going here. We are going to see Snakes make an aggressive push out to Mini. Gets one. He also dinks Stawn down to just a single health point. So this is basically the end of it already. Triumph, all they've got to do is hold these angles, and Stawn likely won't really have a chance at clutching this one out.
Stawn coming through. He's got the flashbang and a smoke. Drops a smoke down. That does work, but at 1 HP, he doesn't really have many opportunities to get back into the site. And there it is. Snakes takes him down 9-6, your halftime score. And that is going to throw us into a halftime break. We'll be back with the second half in just a bit.
But in the first place, well, I never wanted to say. Let me get you alone. I've got a little place in mind. Let me take you alone. There's gonna be a space of time. In the worst way, you got me tripping today. And by the first taste,
We are bringing it back to you once again, ladies and gentlemen. It's Heroic versus Triumph, our opening match here in Atlanta. These two teams going at it on Nuke. Originally, it seemed like a match that Heroic would win quite handily, leading at one point 9-2, I believe. But now down at 9-6, with Triumph making a four-round comeback at the end of the first half.
Spongy, though, I mean, my man is on hard carry mode. Finishing the half with 18 kills and 110 ADR, double the nearest person on the side of Triumph. He's gonna make contact first with them as they move down towards this lower site, and it's looking like it could potentially be a 5-on-5 retake of the B bomb site. Voltage will be the first to swing out. He dies, but there's an immediate trade from Grim. Spongy finds two, the man who's been carrying so hard. XC taken down by Katie, and Stakes and Spongy also die. It's all up to Grim, and Grim never got his foot in the door, quite literally. 10-6, Heroic take the pistol.
And that's going to be very bad news now for Heroic, or excuse me, for Triumph, if we are to assume that Heroic are going to close out these next few as well. Decision to be made here for Triumph. Do they force buy into it now, or do they go for the save, unlike Heroic did at the beginning? It is looking like it's much more leaning towards a save. Only a single purchase brought into it this time for Triumph, and that's a P250 and an AT grenade on Grim and Spongy, respectively. So Triumph's going to try to wait this one out, but that will prove to be dangerous, as once again, it'll just open up the wound here, the difference of rounds between these two teams.
If I'm not mistaken, a characteristic of Matt's team's MCE is always being cautious with their money. I remember watching his teams play, and almost frustratingly so, it was rare to see them force buy in the second round. So not all that surprised. This is surprising, though. Grim, we mentioned it before, 4-16 and only 11 ADR. That might actually be a little bit off from reality because of the restart. I believe he's closer down to like 27. But still not numbers you would expect to see from a player who is touted as one of the stronger ones, mechanically speaking, on the team. Heroic does get access to the outer yard, and they walk their way into the garage through their own smokes. There is a bit of a phalanx set up here from Triumph. All of their gunpowder kind of positioned towards this general territory. A lot of guys over towards Heaven. Not going to make much of a difference. They are gunned down quick. One kill comes out. It's Cadian who falls, but the guns are all coming into the next round anyway.
As the pile of corpses despawns, the round resets. Heroic grow closer and closer to a closeout on their first match of the event here. One that they very much assumed they were going to get, but at least with the way that the first half has played out, to prove to be a bit more of work for them. However, they're now coming back into a strong position. At the same time, though, Triumph also coming into it with their first buy. This is the first chance they'll have in this half to shut this down and try to start bringing things back under their own control. Spongy wants to take direct contact over towards Squeaky. He should have seen at least the foot transition past that.
He heard it, too.
Yeah, and hear it, more importantly. So he's going to be able to call that it's gone downstairs. No real damage done to him. Yeah, but Ston still made it and now has this wedge driven between himself, his team, and his opponents.
Down here with just a lowly little MAC-10, but we've seen him carve apart teams with far less. Voltage outside with that AWP. He's going to have to fall off and find a better angle. Again, you can even just see the difference in the outer take. The method of outer control for Heroic pushes those smokes a little bit deeper and gives them more room to work with. Whereas when we watched Triumph, it was that standard 2 to 3 smoke execute just to get to the stairs. This is a much more creative way to take things from the side of Heroic, and Triumph doesn't have an answer for it right off the bat. So it will be lower control completely for Heroic, but the bodies are starting to pile up from Triumph to play defense.
You said control, and control is the key part of this as well. Heroic are taking a much slower approach too, making sure they kind of clear everything out, whereas Triumph was not necessarily like gung-ho, but they were a little bit more, they were a little bit more focused on the objective at the end of the day, I think, in trying to get to the execution point, finish off their strat, compared to Heroic, who is a little bit more, they're a little bit more
methodical.
Yeah, they're a little more liberal with their time, I guess you could say too, is the other thing. They don't seem to mind bringing down the timer pretty low. Like in this situation right here, you kind of wonder where is the execute.
Yeah, it's starting actually to get a little bit dangerous here. They have not made it into the site. The clock is ticking down very low, but it does fall down to Voltage, and Voltage gets dropped as Snappy gets the flick with the SG. So again, we talked about this in the first half. A characteristic of a team like Heroic is to be more methodical, more careful, whereas I would say Triumph was a little bit more free-flowing, we'll say. They wanted to get into a bomb site, like you said, very quickly, but that's also what worked for them. When they tried to play a little bit more methodical and slow, Heroic was able to read it. So they just started playing loose, and that's when they started picking up rounds, really off the back of individual players. I don't expect to see that so much from Heroic.
This works, though, because, I mean, in theory, with how slow Heroic are playing it, this should allow for Triumph. You had been mentioning this, I think, midway through the first half, that Triumph, all right, let's start to see them get a little more aggressive. Let's start to see them get in their opponent's faces more. They are doing it to a certain extent. It's letting them get quite a few kills. We just haven't really seen it convert to anything yet, mostly because they're not trying it on any sort of gun rounds or anywhere where they necessarily have a much more even chance to close things out. So we'll have to see if they try to make any more desperate plays with the scoreline continuing to grow more and more into Heroic's favor. We've yet to see Triumph close out a round here on the CT side yet, but much like the T side, it's still very early days, and we could see those rounds come in a little bit here.
You can see those smokes cascading out through the windows. I believe that's that's the outer take, so you can see the smokes actually set up outside. They also mollied off the stairs for a moment. But much like we saw from Triumph in that first half, it's a ruse. If you believe they were going there, you've been duped. Here comes the push inside. Molly's out on top to flush out anyone on top, but there's actually no one here. They have full control yet again. It's a 5-on-5 retake, and it's going to be this T-side who just mows them down, and Snappy finds himself 3. And there's the finisher as well. Heroic not really sweating too much in that anti-eco.
Now, that's ultimately going to become the problem, especially when it's tried on ecos. For strats like that to come out from Triumph, is that if it gets red, which I believe is what happened there in that previous round, all they have to do is go the other direction, especially for these big 5-man stacks like this, which is now the second time it's been attempted just in this half by Triumph here. We had that big stack over by AC unit that they did a couple rounds ago, and now they tried this one here on the ramp.
Heroic, clearly big fans of the Krieg. Krieg meta has hit full swing, for better or worse. 4 SGs in play for Heroic. The AUG comes out, as well as the AWP for Triumph. Voltage again, carrying the big green cannon. But look at this, Snappy's already made it up top. And Exceed just never really had a chance. Snappy takes him down so quick. Stown goes into the smoke, gets lost for a second. They're bumping into each other, and Stown's able to spot Grim first. And things are indeed looking grim for Triumph. It's just a 5-on-3.
I don't know why, but people running into each other in smokes is one of the funniest things you can see in this game.
Especially because they start to realize it, and they just usually
they know it's happening. They know it's happening, but they don't want to shoot, because if they shoot, they give themselves away. I like the ones that switch and try to start knifing. I've seen that happen a few times.
It's a game of chicken. It's like, who's going to be the one to do it first?
It's great. Well, by the way, Heroic will get the plant down without too much of an issue due to Triumph once again being off point. And yeah, that's going to lead to Triumph going for a pretty quick save here. Voltage, Snakes, and Spongy just trying to make it out alive. We're going to be heading up to 14 rounds in a second here for Heroic. We do have a few players that are going to try to push into the saving player's position here down the side hall at B. But I think they should be pretty secure here. Very low chance any of them get killed, in my opinion, especially with the smoke going down now.
Yeah, but Cadian can pressure this because it doesn't really hurt him. He's got 7,400. He's got so much money. So they do have some nades going down. They're trying to find them on the stairs. Not wanting to venture past that smoke is also understandable. 14-6. Heroic just on the edge of that finish line. They just need to tap it in.
Just give
it a little tappy, you know. Tap, tap,
oh,
tap.
Okay. Wait, you just want to tap it?
Just tap it in.
I'm more of the Spartan kick kind of guy, you know, into the pit.
Did you ever see the This Is Cake Town, like the PG remake of the trailer for that?
No, I haven't.
Like, this is Cake Town, and like our bees will blot out the sun. At one point, it's like a spear with an ice cream cone on the end. It's pretty good.
Stan's going to pick up the opener this time as he finds Voltage extended. And again, like, you have to give credit for Triumph for trying some stuff here. They did try to get a little bit more aggressive that time, and they've tried it outside too. Unfortunately, at this point, it's just not working out, and it's turning to be too little too late. as Tag is now going to find the third kill against Grim. And it's looking like save has already been called for at least Spongy. Snakes, I imagine, is doing the same.
I believe the desk painted this as a 16-4, 16-5, so really not far off from the expectations. And honestly, it looked like that was even a stretch at one point, given the way that that first half started. At, you know, the 7th round, Snakes, who is typically a strong performer for Triumph, had 0 kills. He actually ended up winning that round in a 1v2 to get his first 2 kills in the half. And that was when it started to pick up a little bit for Triumph. They started to find just small gaps, but not really much from Heroic.
They're going for the kill on these two players as well. Going to try to knock them out. We've got all sorts of nades getting thrown at them. They're not taking the bait on. Oh my god. They got one.
No. I like Snake's attempt there is like hide and seek. He drops a goofy smoke and hides it, and you can even see Heroic's kind of like laughing at the way that went down. Cadian got dinked like 3 times by his teammate.
Literally all of them just pushing them into a corner and just trying their best to get the kills. They got 1 out of 2, so not bad. They're just trying to starve the economy as much as humanly possible. They've succeeded in that to a certain extent. Utility is going to be a bit lax for a few players, but ultimately Triumph will still get a full buy here with the single gun being saved and the money they had left over regardless. And this is now the chance for Heroic to end the match and quickly send themselves forward to the upper bracket finals of their group.
Snakes over here on ramp. Picked up his performance a little bit from that first half. Spongy, though, has cooled off. Spongy came into this second half with 18 kills. He's now currently around, I think, 20 or 21. There goes Voltage down and out, so a man down early on as Cadian picks him off with the Krieg. Not exactly the way you want to see a round start, but we've seen Triumph in lesser man situations make things work. Grim coming in from up top, actually. Spongy who gets things going. The man we talked about cooling down does find himself a few kills. He'll go out on top of the door and he sees the bomb down. It's a 2-on-2 and he's in position to try to play this one. I like the angle. We'll see if it works out.
Got Spongy up on top of the door, as you said before. Snappy at the moment doesn't seem to be aware of his presence, although they are a little bit timid to actually push into the site. The problem is Snakes is waiting over here, so Snappy now has to go back and find the trade, and this is only brought down to a 1v1 because of that. Snappy, though, will be able to make it away, gets himself into the B site. The rotate is coming from upstairs relatively quickly. Just dropped down the ladder now. Snappy knows it's the rotate, and a single shot from him will close it out. Heroic take the first map of this tournament and push themselves forward into the upper bracket finals of their group.
Kind of what we expected to see, right? Like, I think if you're on the side of Triumph, you're not too upset with that. Heroic is a really strong team, and I don't think that Nuke was the play. I also don't think that Vertigo was the play. I'm surprised it actually came down to those final 2 maps. I would love to actually go back and look at the veto just to understand. Heroic took out Inferno, Triumph removed Train, then Dust 2, then Overpass, then Mirage, then Vertigo. I would have loved to see maybe a Mirage or an Overpass or even Inferno, but obviously that map just couldn't make it in. So unfortunate for Triumph, but a little bit of what we expected to see.
So for Triumph, it's looking like they're going to have to possibly put Nuke on the back page, at least for the rest of this tournament now, if they don't get another chance to take a look at the T side. The CT side, I mean, to be fair, we didn't really get to see a whole lot of it from them there, so I don't want to judge that too harshly. But for the time being, that's going to close it out for us. So I think we're going to take it back over to the desk to start talking about this match. Guys?
Thank you very much, lads. Let's actually talk about what they were saying a little bit. I think definitely this is what we expected, but before we really get into the nitty-gritty and break everything down, I do want to ask the question, did we see the performance from Triumph of them actually impressing us? Yes, they weren't able to get the win, but did they do what they needed to do against a squad like Heroic?
No, I don't think so. I think we got to see what we expected, as you said as well. I think we saw a way much superior Heroic team here. I think they were by far better in pretty much every single aspect in this game. Individually speaking, the players showed up from Heroic Cade and had a great first half, you know, very assertive with the AWP, made sure that it was very tough for the Triumph guys to get anything going on that T side. They ended up getting 6 rounds, I believe, you know, on that T side, and that was okay, you know, that's a good sign, that's well played to them in that aspect, but not being able to do more on your CT side, that's very disappointing.
It definitely is, and they got those 6 rounds versus such a strong Heroic on their CT side. I mean, they had so many good crossfires, and that's the thing about Nuke these days on that CT side. We talked about it being an inherently CT-sided map, but that's only if you come prepared with those crossfires and understanding exactly where you're going to take those duels. And we saw that as soon as the sides switched, Triumph, their T side, it was a little lackluster. They weren't able to get anything going on their side.
And we heard even from our casters before it did come back to the desk, the idea of putting a lot of pressure on Nuke and actually talking about Nuke as the selection coming in, maybe seeing Triumph stay away from that. They also bring up Vertigo after watching this.
And this was Triumph's pick, we have to remember. This Nuke was Triumph's pick, and in a best of one, if it's coming all the way down to the Nuke, it's a little worrisome.
Yeah, I am a little bit curious why we actually did end up there, what I'm hearing from you guys and also hearing from the casters. But luckily for us, we're actually going to have our interview right now. Maybe we can hear a little bit more about that draft. We have Snappy standing by right now, and I know you guys have a couple of questions to actually get asked in here in just a few moments. I really do kind of want to talk about this draft a little bit more and how it actually did shape up when we actually do get to talk to him now. So, Snappy, what actually did happen in the draft? How did we end up getting to this map?
I mean, it was the map that we wanted. So, yeah, I don't know how it ended up on Nuke, but I think we have a pretty strong map pool, and we removed Inferno, which looked like their best map, and then I think they had to play either Vertigo or Nuke, which are two very strong maps for us.
Marco, coming into this tournament, there can be no doubt that you guys must consider yourself as heavy favorites. Would you say this is a must-win event for you guys? Would you be disappointed with anything else than a victory?
Yeah, we would. I don't think that anything apart from victory is good enough. I mean, we can obviously slip. I think there's a lot of good teams here, but we won't get anything in terms of ranking points from this event, so we came here to win.
Now, I know in Rotterdam, Kadian mentioned that you guys were feeling a little bit like the underdogs approaching these matches. Has your approach changed coming into here? Have you guys realized that you are the favorites, or are you still in that mentality where you've got nothing to lose, you're coming in here as the underdogs?
But I think at Rotterdam there was Force was there, Vanguard was there. Obviously, there's still some teams here that are really good. Crazy won Rotterdam, and some of the Sprout versus Pro, we can easily lose to those teams if we don't play well. So it's obviously not going to be easy, but we came here to win and only to win.
You just mentioned a few of the teams that you felt that you potentially could lose to if you're not showing up on any given day. Which one of them would you say are your biggest rivals coming into this one?
I don't know. I think I lost 3 finals in a row to Esperanto, so I guess him.
Now, we know that Kadian has a large voice, and he even mentioned that sometimes he finds himself talking a little bit too much. Has that been a struggle, or has it been just cohesive synergy like it looks like in the server? Or are you guys having to grind out a lot of repetitive things outside of the server in practices?
I mean, he's a vocal guy, but I mean, I think it's fine. He has a lot of good ideas, and we can bounce them off each other, so that works well.
Thank you so much for your time. Congrats on that early win. I'm sure we'll be seeing much more from you guys coming up soon, but I think it is really important to kind of hear the situation that they do find themselves in. Obviously, they're going to be coming into this with almost all of the pressure on them, but in a way they can still relax. This early win, though, do we see any early signs of what we might see in this tournament?
Not really. I mean, going up against Triumph, it's not something that's going to tell too much about how Heroic is performing. It's sometimes a little bit tough to be the big dog in that scenario, right? You see on the scoreboard here as well, pretty much every single player showed up. 17 frags on Kadian being the lowest fragging department player. That's not bad by no means. So it's a good start for Heroic. It's a chill game for them. They ease into the tournament, and whenever they start to face some of the better teams, that's when we start to see what they're made of for the tournament. Yeah,
I think the next matchup is actually one that we can be really excited about when we start thinking about the overall tournament, because we're going to get to look at Crazy, a team that we obviously hear about in the interview, also a team that we're going to have some questions around when we do have that stand-in, and also we have Chaos that's going to be playing, and this is a team that we know can potentially make upsets. Guys, we're going to find out what's going to be going on in this matchup right after this.